Continuing our coverage of a big day in Fast and Furious, Congressman Blake Farenthold from Texas will join us later in the hour. A member of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee just had a talk back, wondering if there was any more talk about a special prosecutor to investigate Fast and Furious. Well, you know, Congress has been on recess. I'm guessing that when Congress gets back in session, that's going to be a big topic of conversation among the members of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. What happens after they wrap up their investigation, which is going to continue. 2 more hearings, at least, for the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee before the end of the year. And continuing our conversation about Fast and Furious, very pleased to have with us on the program, author and syndicated columnist Michelle Malkin is with us. Michelle, how you doing tonight?
Good. It's good to talk to you, Cam.
I know. Thanks for coming back on the program. It's been a while.
I know. Way too long.
Well, we're glad that you're here tonight. And, you know, no shortage of things for you to write and blog about and talk about these days, including now the latest on Fast and Furious, more shuffling of the deck chairs on the Titanic, more reassignments for officials connected to Fast and Furious, and one guy, the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, Dennis Burke, allowed to resign, walk out the front door with pats on the backs and all kinds of accolades for his time as the U.S. Attorney.
Yeah, it's just another example of the Washington Beltway mantra of screw up, move up, and cover up. And it's not any surprise coming from an agency, the Department of Justice, making some of these announcements about these reassignments, quote-unquote, and reshufflings. Mm-hmm. Not a surprise that this comes from an agency that's headed by the master of screwing up and moving up, Eric Holder. I am always reminded that this man made it through the confirmation process with glowing bipartisan support, and there were more than a dozen Senate Republicans who went along with that farce, despite Eric Holder's long record of corruption under the Clinton administration, and certainly NRA members and you and so many of us who followed so many of the debacles that he was involved in are not surprised. But I think what heartens me about this entire scandal, and I do really rank it up there as the top scandal of this administration, and there have been many, mm-hmm. as I've chronicled in Culture of Corruption. But I think what heartens me is that there has been a relentlessness from many brave whistleblowers within ATF, mm-hmm. Second Amendment bloggers. You've been there, and of course Charles Grassley and Darrell Issa, who've not given up on getting to the bottom of it.
No, I think you're right, and you know, really, you've got to go back to those original whistleblowers, those ATF field agents. John Dodson was the first one to go on camera. Vince Cephalou testified before Congress and has been handed his termination papers after 24 years as a field agent for apparently talking about Fast and Furious. But if it weren't for those guys who were so bothered by this and who finally said, you know what, I can't be quiet anymore, can't be silent about this, Michelle, we wouldn't know about Fast and Furious.
That's right. And, of course, there's one other level of courage and heroism, and that's, of course, the law-abiding FFL holders and the gun shop owners who saw what was going on and raised a ruckus about it as well. And I think, obviously, that's the most undercovered aspect of all of this in what limited mainstream media coverage there has been, that in fact, there are so many anti-Second Amendment, anti-gun zealots in the halls of the Obama administration, in the top brass at ATF, anti-Second Amendment ideologues who seem to, now, I mean, I can't say with certainty, but there certainly is the strong perception that they were targeting some of these license holders and gun shop owners, and possibly undertaking this entire operation with an eye towards demonizing them. And, of course, over the last month, we had that head fake with Fast and Furious to try and distract from all of the gross misconduct and negligence and incompetence with another crackdown on the very people who are so largely responsible for blowing the whistle on the scandal in the first place.
Well, that's exactly right. You saw, in fact, you can go and you can look through the documents that the few documents that have actually been turned over to Senator Grassley and Representative Issa, and among them is an email more than a year old where you had requests for information about Fast and Furious because the higher-ups were looking for anecdotal information, anecdotal stories that they could tell about the need for a multiple long gun reporting scheme. And that's exactly what DOJ announced just a little more than a month ago, this multiple long gun reporting scheme. They said that this was something that, it was only in the works for a few months, but they've been talking about this behind the scenes for more than a year.
Yes, exactly. With the Chicago way and the Obama way, there are no coincidences. And so I think we definitely have to emphasize those kind of gems and discoveries in these internal documents. And then, of course, with regard to today's news of Kenneth Melson getting shuffled around, I mean, there's so much audacity packed into this announcement today. Now, of course, he had been cooperative and gave this very helpful secret testimony, but in the letter that Grassley and Issa sent to the Justice Department with regard to that secret testimony, they mentioned that Melson had revealed that he was, quote, sick to his stomach when he discovered the extent of the Operation Fast and Furious's deadly lapses. Mm-hmm. And yet he was so sick to his stomach. However, he's still keeping a job there, and I just have questions about that.
Well, I do too. And I've asked everybody we've talked to tonight, I've asked this question. I'm going to ask you as well, Michelle. Supposedly, the Justice Department's Office of Inspector General has been conducting its own internal investigation into Fast and Furious.
You're right.
Now, why on earth would the Obama administration reassign Bill Newell, David Voth, Bill McMahon, Ken Melson, and accept the resignation of Dennis Burke when their internal investigation has not been concluded yet?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
I mean, why do you start the shuffle unless you know what your investigation's got to tell you?
Exactly, and it all stinks to high heaven. I mean, this is their definition of holding people, quote unquote, accountable, is to do the dance of the lemons with them, and there's who knows however many other of these quote unquote reassignments have gone on under a cover of darkness. And with the one resignation of Dennis Burke, as you mentioned, Cam, this guy is walking out of that office with his head held high when so many of these people should be doing the frog march. And really be held legally accountable. And so, of course, a lot of people have raised the question of whether this resignation was really, and it seems transparent to me, an effort to try and curb whatever legal liability he might have had if he had still been in office. And then there's still so many snakes, not just in at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Phoenix, but of course so many of them obviously being reassigned and kicked upstairs, promoted to the Washington headquarters where their overseers and overlords can keep close watch on them.
Absolutely. And Michelle, while this is going on, the Obama administration, as you say, they seem to be targeting, frankly, the largest group of people who have come off looking good in Fast and Furious, the FFLs in the border states, who complained and who said, whoa, we got some suspicious individuals here, and we're told by the ATF, oh, no, go ahead and make that sale. The Obama administration is going after them. They're going after guitar makers who are, simply making a product. It really seems like the administration is starting to go after the people who are creating the few jobs that are being created in this country, Michelle. Is this part of President Obama's big jobs plan?
Apparently so. And the Gibson guitar story, which came out on Friday in the Wall Street Journal, Eric Felton is a terrific chronicler of these kind of jackboot tactics, is really absolutely galling. And I'm so glad to see the CEO of that company fighting back, getting the message out about what's really going on here. I think it's a toxic combination of eco-nitwittery and DOJ overreach. This botched attempt to enforce international law when the other countries that are involved, India being one of them, believe that the Justice Department itself is wrongly enforcing these laws, and then the net effect, the consequence of doing so means keeping these jobs overseas. I mean, these were this is an American manufacturer that was employing upwards of thousands of people to finish the guitars here in the U.S. and now they're being treated like human rights violators and international criminals. It's insane.
It is insane, and you wonder under this law that now, granted, the Gibson folks have not actually been told why they were raided. We talked with Henry Juskowitz last night, the chairman and CEO of Gibson, and he said he assumes it had something to do with the East Indian rosewood and a presumed violation of the Lacey Act, which requires not just people like Henry Juskowitz and Gibson Guitar to establish where the wood came from, but if you own one of these guitars, you also have to be able to establish where the wood came from, and it wasn't, you were all on the up and up. Otherwise, you could have your guitar seized. I got to tell you, Michelle, one of our listeners, Ray, who lives in we refer to it as Bloombergia, New York City. Ray pointed out, there are a lot of guns out there that have wood grips, and I'm really concerned. I mean, what's to say this isn't the next move by the Obama administration to go after firearms manufacturers for violating the Lacey Act, supposedly?
Oh yeah, I agree with that concern wholeheartedly, and in a lot of ways, I think the way they try and test these power grabs is to do them on a. I think they assumed that it was that this is not going to get any attention at all, and that they would have never anticipated that the CEO would have gone on YouTube and you would have seen videos that could be spread virally and that the word would get out there. But one could totally imagine, just given how expansive their power grabs, whether it's land grabs, gun grabs, regulatory grabs, jobs grabs, have been over the since day one of this administration, that they would have any hesitation at all to applying it to gun owners. I can see it happening.
Is that the best way to fight back? When Henry Juskowitz, went on television, when he started this media offensive to get the word out, I mean, is that what has to be done to try to do an end run around the legacy media to get your story out there in front of the American people?
No question about it, particularly for business owners and anyone who has the capability of circumventing the national media and the narrative racketeers. This was the lesson of the Tea Party movement over the last couple of years as well, is that being able to use radio shows like yours and the synergy with Twitter and Facebook and friendly blogs, and there are plenty of them out there, and that obviously is the one of the big lessons as well of Operation Fast and Furious, because it was Second Amendment bloggers who initially broke and covered the story, and then groups like the NRA that helped amplify it. Before you had, I give credit to the few mainstream media outlets out there who have been covering this. Cheryl Atkinson at CBS and the LA Times has also done a good job, but it still has not penetrated, in my view, the national media. They still see it as some sort of fringe cause when, of course, we're talking about life and death matters.
Absolutely.
That have affected American families of our heroes on the border.
Yep, and I'm so afraid that tomorrow those outlets that have not really covered the story will try to tie this up, put a bow on it, and say, all right, the story is done now. We've got the acting ATF director; he's been reassigned, and the U.S. attorney's gone. So story's over, folks. Nothing more to see.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Yeah,
and whitewash is the favorite color, not only of the DOJ, but of course all of their water carriers and the media. No, I think this is really, this is just a rallying cry, what happened today, for all the folks who've been active on this issue to redouble their efforts to make sure it doesn't just get swept under the rug.
Absolutely. Hey, Michelle, it is always a pleasure getting a chance to talk with you. Thanks so much for coming on the show tonight, and look forward to doing this again soon.
You bet. Keep doing what you're doing, Cam. Take care.
Thanks, Michelle. Michelle Malkin joining us, author, syndicated columnist, and blogger extraordinaire, new media maven, I think is a very good description for Michelle.